Hello and welcome. I'm Julie Brown and this is my DCL1 assignment looking at 21st century skills and collaboration. So a little bit more about myself. I'm an English and Media Studies teacher at Westlake Girls High School. We're currently in our 4th year of a BYOD initiative and have Year 9 having compulsory BYOD this year, moving towards one-to-one devices at all year levels in the next couple of years. So, let's look at 21st century skills. The focus of this assignment is going to be looking at collaboration in particular. So before we get on to collaborative learning, I do just want to talk a little bit more about what is meant by 21st century environments. Now, Grant Lichtman talks about the fact that 21st century learning environments are hugely similar to that of a natural ecosystem. It's creative, adaptive, permeable, dynamic, systemic, and self-correcting. He states that the most successful models of learning are those which in this environment involve collaboration and sharing of information. He stresses the need to prepare students for their future, not our past. So, with this in mind, what is the area of improvement that I've identified? I'm going to look at Level 3 Media Studies External Genre Examination results and also thinking skills. Now, why did I choose this particular area? Largely because this is an area which students are performing poorly, particularly in their end-of-year exam. There's high rates of students not attempting the standard, which indicates a lack of confidence and engagement with the topic, and students are also reluctant to think for themselves, and as we know, thinking is a key competency in the New Zealand curriculum. Students are also quite reluctant to share their ideas in class, and largely I think that comes back down to a fear of being wrong, so they're unwilling to take risks. So why exactly is this the case? What is happening here? Now, what I think is happening is that in a lot of senior classes, teachers really are reverting to spoon feeding. We bombard students with way too much information, death by PowerPoint, and we tend to give students a lot of information rather than letting students actually find the answers out themselves. We can see a good example of how we're actually doing that ourselves in our genre unit. So this is what you can see on screen is a Weebly site that our department has put together for the film noir genre. And on this site we've collated a lot of information on the codes and conventions of the genre, historical context, notes on films that we've studied. We've included links to other online sites to help them with their learning. So there's basically everything they need to know about noir. And although students are given research questions to answer, they themselves really have to do very little in researching the answers. And what I think this does is it removes their ability to actually refine their own research skills and start to learn how to omit irrelevant information and start to check information for accuracy. So probably the ones who have benefited the most from this site are actually us, the teachers, because in creating this site together, we've consolidated our own understanding of the genre, but we've also removed the students for the students, which is not ideal. So the same approach can be seen in the way that we also teach our case study films. So you can see Double Indemnity on screen here. What we do is we basically follow a lecture style of teaching. We watch the film as a class, we discuss key scenes, and I give my students PowerPoint notes to copy down. The model is really hugely teacher-centered, with the teacher as the expert and the holder of knowledge, and it doesn't develop the 21st century skill of collaboration that our students really desperately need. Paul Nagel, in his article Moving Beyond Lecture, talks about the fact that many teachers who work within secondary schools model or teach the way that they are taught, by lecturing. And I strongly agree with this. What is scary is that he continues on to say that after 15 to 20 minutes of lecture, students actually stop listening or paying attention. So this is a really ineffective way of teaching. Nagel then continues on to list the benefits of collaborative learning. So he talks about the way that cooperative learning strategies have been shown to improve retention rates of students, increase higher levels of reasoning, increase the generation of new ideas and solutions, that there is greater transfer of what is learned from one situation to another, and collaborative learning also promotes academic achievement. It's linked to increases in self-esteem, attendance, time on task, enjoyment of school and classes, motivation to learn, as well as the decrease in dependence on the teacher, which is really significant. So, if collaboration is so effective, then why am I and why are we not actually doing this with our students? And probably the strongest point that I can think of is really the fact that we move away from collaborative tasks due to time constraints. It's really a whole lot quicker to give students answers than to have them search for them themselves. Teachers are also hampered by pressure to perform and produce results, not just from students but also parents and also the school itself. And lastly, fear of loss of control. So by giving students greater freedom over their learning, teachers potentially risk not being in control of what they're learning, and that is a legitimate fear for a lot of teachers. What this is, though, is a huge contrast or completely at odds with constructivist learning theory. And just to summarize, what this means is that learning is created through experience, and that learning is made more meaningful when students are actually able to interact with a problem or the concept. Two figures who are behind the development of constructivist theories are Jean Piaget and Lev Vygotsky. And Vygotsky talks about the importance of the teacher adopting the role of facilitator, not being the content provider, which is what has tended to happen. Piaget continues to talk about the fact that the principal goal of education really should be to create men and women who are capable of doing new things, not simply repeating what other generations have done. So it's a completely different way of looking at education. So on that note, what exactly is my innovation? So what I've chosen to focus on is really looking at the use of online web technologies, where students don't rely on me as the expert. That knowledge is actually formed through collaboration tasks. So we're going to be using Google Docs, Google Slides, and Erasmus. So in a little bit more detail, my innovation is going to be looking at doing some background research on film noir, where students are going to be allocated an area of the noir genre to research for a start. And following Vygotsky's theories, the groups are going to be quite small and varying levels of ability. They're going to use Google Slides to collate their research, and then what they're going to do is present their findings to the class. After they've presented, they will also share their presentation on our Google Classroom. Stage 2 of my innovation is to be using Erasmus. So after we've done our background research and we've watched our case study films, students are going to move back into their small groups, and they're going to be allocated a specific film and a specific aspect of noir to analyse. They're going to be using Erasmus to create an interactive analysis of their film and aspect, which will then be used by the rest of the class. Each group is going to use film stills from their allocated film as triggers, and they're going to be able to actually present their analysis through a combination of text, images, and video. So there's quite a lot of creative choice there. Once the group projects are complete, each group is going to share their Erasmus creations, and each group is going to continue working while analysing each other's Erasmus projects. Now, stage 3 is moving towards actually putting this knowledge into a format that is going to be useful for the end of year exams, and that's where we're going to be using Google Docs. So once they've completed their Erasmus creation, they're going to start writing an essay response to an NCEA question, and they're going to share their group essay on Google Classroom. Each group is then going to read each other's essays, and they're going to use the Level 3 Media Studies marking rubric to peer mark each other's essays. They're going to be expected to add constructive feedback by adding comments. Lastly, in stage 4, we're going to do some reflective learning, and we're going to use a tool called Lineoit. And Linowit is an online canvas where students can post questions or comments on sticky notes or post-its. And what I'm going to do is have students put colour-coded posts reflecting the following questions. So what have you learned during your research? What do you still feel unsure about? And what were your strengths or weaknesses in this collaborative process? So perhaps looking at their leadership or their following skills. Lastly, what do I hope to achieve throughout this process? At the end of the process, I'm really hoping to have improved overall collaboration and thinking skills of students. I'm really looking at hoping to see the engagement increase and also academic performance. And how I'm going to measure this is using the longitudinal data from NCEA, looking at 2014, 15 and 2016 results, and really specifically looking for improvements in the rate of students who are not attempting the standard, but also overall achievement in general. So there we have it. There's my assignment, and here are my references for any of the sources that I've used throughout my research.